Oh, yeah. We're live. What up, Brian? Episode 25.
What's going on?
Gonna give people a few minutes to join here. Gonna push the socials and everything live, but yeah, stoked. I was sort of thinking about before hopping on this call, like over the last 2 weeks, we got back into something that had been a very normal thing for us to do for I think before both of our lives got insane with the things that we're building, where we just like talk for 2 hours about crypto bullshit and leave slightly more confused, but in new ways. So I'm like, okay, maybe we can bring a bit of that vibe.
Okay.
A bit of that vibe here.
Back on the bullshit, as they say.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. All right, cool. How we doing, Peace? Looking good?
Doing good. Cooking. Exciting day. We're going to fucking have some rewards today, man. It's awesome.
Wow. Happenings today. I don't even know. No one's talking about it.
You're just in different parts of crypto Twitter, I think.
Oh, clearly. And not in Rune's Twitter, huh?
Yeah, it's going down. Hear this?
Oh, man. Look
at that. That's right, baby. Soon.
That's good.
It's hilarious.
It's so good. All right. Well, let's push live and let's dive in. Oh, yeah. We're back. Episode 25 of Internet Explorers, Fridays, 10 a.m. time. 25 weeks in a row. What a run.
Wow.
What in crypto lasts 25 weeks these days? Really?
Really nothing.
Exceptional. Joined here today with an old dear friend, fellow internet user, on-chain fiction, Brian Flynn. Josh. Josh is on his way to Mexico to partake in some sort of bro Olympics. I don't know how else to describe it, Peace. It sounds like a bro Olympics.
What does that mean? What is he doing?
He's with a bunch of bros, and they've designed a bunch of like semi-Olympic type games for them all to do to like compete to see who's the biggest bro, I think.
Nice. Is it called Bro Olympics?
No, I think this is my slightly derogatory framing of it. Yeah. It actually sounds pretty cool, and I wish him well. Right. They did a combine earlier in the year that sort of I think placed him pretty high. I told him that was a strategic mistake. You want to really, just like golf, you want to keep your handicap high so you can get in and get paired up more appropriately to win, but too much of a competitor, Josh. So he's helped to curate a wonderful list of topics here today, and thought would bring Brian on to just riff a little bit on, it's actually a little bit more of a nerdy set of topics here today. So
juicy,
kind of cool. And of course, we got Peace Note on the buttons here. How we doing, Peace?
Doing good. Cruising right along.
Did you get any sleep last night? Because you were messaging me really, really late my time.
Yeah, I didn't. It's those pre-having jitters, man. Everything's happening. The number's going up. It's going down. The community's taking over. Good energy.
I love it. You sent me down 2 or 3 rabbit holes. I'm like, I can't look at my Telegram anymore. We gotta go to bed. Couple things to tell you before we get started today. A reminder that free Wi-Fi, which is a unconference side event at FarCon, we're hosting on the Saturday, the weekend of FarCon. Applications are still open to join that. There's close to 300 people who've already applied there. It's probably over our max already. So if you're interested, if you're going to be around, you don't need to have a FarCon pass to join. You can just get on that list. We'd love to see you there. It's brought to you by our friends at Sirion and Archetype and a whole bunch of other stuff.
And Boost is also sponsoring.
What's that?
Boost is also sponsoring.
Love it. I didn't even know that yet. That's alpha here.
That's some alpha. Yeah, that's not on the poster yet. So
it's true. Yeah, sorry, I got to update these graphics.
Okay, well, we'll just give you some. We'll give you a bit of an ad slot here in a few minutes to tell us a little bit of what's happening there. But it's going to be a really great crew, and I think there's a lot of people who aren't able to actually attend FarCon. So if that's you and you're in LA, looking at sort of some of the sessions that are planned already, some of the fun stuff. There's a party in the nighttime. What do we call this party? We're calling it
it's airplane mode.
Okay, so this is just too good. Free Wi-Fi during the day, airplane mode at night. I can't even.
We got Far Concert, we got airplane mode, we got
too much good stuff happening. Cool. Well, Brian, I'd love to just check in with you a little bit. I mean, I think maybe a month or two ago, you sort of pushed a fairly big update to Boost. I mean, you became Boost. I know you got a big roadmap that you're pushing on. So what's the latest from the Boost world?
Latest on the Boost world. Working on working on a V2 right now, which is really focused on how do we target high valued users with the right reward amount. Really for us, it's how do we find the most valuable users for any given project, something I know that C Club also cares a lot about. So mission's very aligned in that sense. So V2 will help a lot with that. Working on other cool protocol stuff like budget accounts, make it easy for people to distribute incentives, but just cruising right along, man. Just right now working on a lot of cool stuff that we're probably share right around FarCon. So getting ready for that.
There's going to be so many announcements coming out around FarCon. It's going to be awesome to see. So I'm stoked to see what you have. I mean, I kind of know what you're working on right now, and I'm very stoked on it. So it'd be cool to see it out in the world. So I think let's just jump into the topics today. We're going to talk about some mechanisms. Something I've been talking quite a bit about as it relates to meme coins. I think the best meme coins are going to be memes plus mechanisms, and paying attention to mechanisms is, I think, essential if we're building the space. We're going to talk about runes, the cooler, better branded version of BRC20s, ERC20s, fungible tokens on Bitcoin.
Way better name.
It's a way better name. It's good. I know Peace has been deep in that world, so I'm stoked to dive in there. Going to talk about Uniswap, protocols, networks, brand. There's been some spicy takes on marketing on the timeline over the last little while, which I'd love to see. Airdrop struggles, looking at the DeFi protocols, they're big airdrops, this whole dynamic of like late stage token deals, token launches, and the market being like, maybe we don't, maybe not, maybe we're not stoked on this. And then we got some fun stuff in the lightning round, which I hope we can get to as well. But yeah, let's maybe kick off. So earlier this week, Maria Shen shared a lovely long, these are my favorite tweet threads that have a million links that you could just literally
fantastic
and go super deep into. And the, I thought what might be interesting is just to kind of, it's almost sort of like a zoom back in time type thing as you sort of, look at there's, I guess, as time speeds by in crypto, there's just like a million interesting experiments that happen, and they can be easily sort of overshadowed by the next sort of fun experiment. But I think time after time after time, we see these mechanisms being remixed, repackaged, reintroduced. Some are maybe too early, some maybe just had something slightly off or just weren't, relevant in the current meta. So my expectation here is that there's some stuff in this thread that is going to come back in new and interesting ways, and we can probably talk about some of that as well. So I thought maybe just the cool thing would be to kind of go down. I'll sort of call it a few of the ones that I think are notable or interesting, and we can just riff on those. And to start off, I'm gonna have to pay the dog tax today. You guys can probably hear my dog barking at the
definitely hear the dog barking.
I have to do the dog tax. I got in trouble last time for not showing the dog, so maybe we'll see if we can pull it out.
Being a dog, episode 25 really requires the dog to come on the show.
I really want to go yell at him right now, but he's just going to do his barking thing. There we go. So we talked a little bit about nouns last week, but I think, you've been a long time nouns holder, correct?
Well, not anymore. Let's be honest. But at one point, I was a long time nouns holder. That's correct.
So, did you sell on secondary? Is that how you got out? What you do? You're a secondary.
I rage quit with the first fork.
Okay, well, I won't even dive into that. I think so. Nouns came back up in our topics last week because they were talking about launching a meme coin, scene coin. Maybe scene coin's the more appropriate way to call that. I think the nouns sort of emerged from this this meta of NFT land, right? There was all these NFT projects selling a ton of tokens, but like the sort of a mismatch in like the revenue or the business model of these projects. And I think nouns is sort of like a mechanism to kind of solve for that, or maybe pretty directly solve for that. Going away from trying to sell 10,000 NFTs and then maybe live off royalties. Well, now royalties don't exist anymore. So the business is really just how do I go make and sell more NFTs to an existing community? And I think we've seen sort of the challenges with Yuga and Bored Apes, and we've seen some challenges with Zukis, and it's kind of like probably just died mostly because the mechanism is actually not super strong. And if we look at Nouns DAO, like, yeah, there's been a bunch of drama. There's been a fork. There's been, debates, etc. But it's been remarkably resilient throughout the bear market. I think the hovering around 6 or 7 ETH on a daily auction, this mechanism driving revenues to the treasury, and the sort of community there, just, because there's such a high level of buy-in and actually a reasonable amount of things to go do with that money, despite maybe some criticism about not doing enough. I think we should sort of, like, I saw on crypto Twitter, some people were kind of calling it out as being a failed experiment, but I don't see it like that whatsoever.
Sure. It's almost in year 3 now, which is like, that's like, that's 30 years in crypto land.
Yeah, it's crazy. Do you have an opinion on sort of like the fungible token idea tied to Nouns? Are you familiar with that? I think it's gone under the radar in a big way.
You and I talked a little bit about it so far. Well, one of the biggest issues with Nouns was that you kind of had to own a whole noun in order to participate, right, in the Nouns ecosystem. And of course, there was this concept of like people trying to get like delegation power, or even like given some nouns for some grant work, but it still felt kind of like really expensive because it was just non-fungible in this instance. So the interesting thing about the fungible token piece of it is now it's much cheaper to kind of get participants onboarded into the ecosystem. Now, it still remains to be seen exactly how this is executed. I know there's a proposal out I haven't dove deep into as a non-Nouns holder, but it seems very promising as a potential Nouns holder in the future.
Yeah, I think the biggest question in my mind is like the proposal is basically where you can sort of essentially stake, you sort of deposit your noun into a contract, and you get $1 million nouns fungible tokens out. And so it feels like a quasi fractionalization of nouns. Maybe that's actually the right way to anchor the idea. And I think like what needs to happen here is for these tokens to really unlock a lot more volume, liquidity, interactivity, usage. That there sort of needs to be more of an abundance mindset around these tokens. I'm not sure if sort of locking or anchoring the sort of the fungible token as like a fractionalized version of nouns is going to unlock that. I think like the wild card here is like, what does the Nouns DAO do with the fork nouns that live in the treasury? Can they actually get proposals passed that get a bunch of those out there? And but it also kind of creates this weird dynamic where you're going to have sort of 2 prices and some arbitrage opportunities. You have like the daily sale mechanism, and then you have like the liquid price that's kind of tied to that. So I don't know where it's going to go. I think it's an awesome experiment, but again, it's an example of a mechanism that is very novel, and I think kind of interesting to me that we haven't seen a whole lot of success in replicating that mechanism across the board. I mean, that's maybe not fair. There are a lot of sort of smaller, very active communities. Purple, sort of there's one in the yellow, I think, is the sort of base focused one. Energy focused on Zora. But we haven't seen anything remotely.
What's interesting, Jess, is you remember this well, where this last PFP wave, everyone was like, hey, PFPs are the better meme coins because everyone wants to have this like JPEG represents their identity. And we've come like full circle on that, right? As you talk about all the time with meme coins, it's like, well, actually meme coins is a lot lower friction to start participating and have your identity. I know it's something I can fully agree with. So now I wonder if all of these PFP communities are going to be launching their own tokens just to kind of.
I mean, it's going to be more than that. They're launching their own L3s now, Brian. That's where we're at in the cycle.
Hey, we're seeing some L4s going right now on Degen chain. So
they're
getting there quickly.
They're migrating to ordinals. It's all of the above, to be honest. Right now, it's pretty amazing. It's awesome.
I love it.
The best part is I can't tell if you're joking or serious.
I'm dead serious. No, I'm dead serious. Yeah. I can't
tell either, but I know he's serious.
The only one that I know is Lasogeti, who's the creator of Puppets, did a collection on Ethereum. But anytime I listen to ordinal spaces, there's all these people talking about their buddies and their PFP collection and migrating to Bitcoin for a number of reasons. Yeah.
I mean, we can probably get into that in our next section here, but I mean, 50% of the volume in the crypto market is still Bitcoin. That's the most liquid market. If it can have, you know, flexibility in the way that Ethereum has with that deep liquidity, it's kind of hard to ignore. All right. Let's maybe move down a little bit here. It's been interesting to watch the Party DAO evolution over the last while. You know, they could. We had Dennis on our SEO7 cohort call yesterday, and he did this really great sort of walk back through time. And you know, he's been around in space forever, but I talked about sort of the moment where he tweeted out this idea that ultimately led to Party DAO forming through a crowdfund on Mir. Talk about a blast from the past. And then to see sort of like the iteration building some pretty, there's a lot more mechanisms that team has built there than maybe what people see today, but seems to have found new light in this community scene coin wave, the ability for people to come together, crowdfund, using their crowdfunding mechanism, use it to deploy liquidity, and, you know, sort of like the genesis of teams like Hire, and I think Carlos and Imagine has used the same mechanism. I don't know where that goes. It feels like a bit of like a thin piece of the stack from sort of like the meme coin stack. And clearly they have a bunch of other tools there they can probably build on top of it. So my expectation is that's the direction they're going. But crowdfunding still seems to be like a core utility here, and it's a pretty elegant mechanism to form capital with your friends.
Yeah. Yeah. This feels like the less degen version of pump.fund to me. That's kind of that's kind of my mental model right now, right? So if you look at Party as like the evolution in the past year, first they built the Party protocol, and it was a very generalized use case where you could basically do any action, particularly crowdfunding, NFT purchases. And then as they kind of went along, they kind of get more narrow of finding what are these parties actually doing. And I think even in the past 2 or 3 months, as this whole meme coin craze started to happen, they've actually made it probably the easiest way to actually launch your token. They actually use the word safest way and way of actually binding these communities together. So I kind of put it in the same category as pump.fund, but it's definitely less degen, appealing to kind of a wider audience there.
Yeah, I like that framing, right? Like pump.fund's really unruggable liquidity. I mean, I love how that website does not scream unruggable anything, but that's kind of the core mechanism they have. And I guess it's the same mechanism here with Party. Interesting. Okay, well, this week was also a hot week for crypto, the game. Were you keeping up with today with the drama?
What's the drama going on?
Okay, so you haven't. That's good. You're better off for it. The whole thing seems kind of ridiculous and kind of fun. But you know, I think this upper section of this thread, Maria is using sort of the idea of coordination as a core mechanism in crypto, and I think it's, you know, interesting to see coordination at the social layer sort of tied together with some really simple crypto primitives. You know, like the crypto the game is on chain, and that there's NFTs and there's a prize pool there, but all of the entertainment value is happening in group chats and backstabbing through Twitter and vote buying and accusations and calls to morality and ethics and all the good stuff that keeps people tied together.
It's like speed running FTX in 2 weeks.
It's literally that. It's the most annoying form of PvP in my mind, but it's got people hooked, which is great to see them excited.
Yeah, I mean, and also it seems to be a place where a lot of, you know, they got a lot of interesting media attention. I think they had Adidas in some way working with them. So there's sort of like this almost like approachability that I think is kind of interesting and kind of ties into, I think, the long-held thesis that we have around, you know, the social, cultural game side of things being a really warm, if not, I don't know if I'd call crypto the game warm, but entry point into this weird world that we play in. It also reminds me that, like, you don't actually need to go build a crypto product to reach 10 million people. If you get the right 1,000 people obsessed with your thing, there's actually a lot of economic value around that.
It was cool to see them, like, well, I don't know how much they did this with all their products, but the way they did their partnership with Lens too, where there were scavenger hunts on the Lens app. So it's like everyone playing the game has to go onboard the Lens and click around and get familiar with the product. So that's an interesting way of just like getting people to try something new as well.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see if we look back on how they sponsored Crypto the Game as like a net positive. They've definitely got a lot of attention from it. I'm not sure it's endeared people significantly to Lens through some of like the games that were around it.
Right. For separate reasons, I guess, because individuals from Lens were in the game. Similar. Yeah, there was like contention around that. Sponsors. There was a couple sponsors who were like also in the game. Yeah, I don't know.
This is very classic crypto, though, right?
It's perfect crypto, exactly. Yeah, I mean, congrats to the Crypto the Game team again. They've been doing cool stuff, and they're probably going to blow our brains again with whatever. I mean, you're going to have to keep topping it, right?
Jess, doesn't it remind you of, you've seen Ready Player One? It kind of seems like early stages of like a Ready Player One type thing.
Fun fact: I've yet to see Ready Player One. Fun fact.
Wow. Well,
fun fact. That and Titanic, I hold as.
I feel like you're the only person in crypto who hasn't seen it.
Ready Player One is such a better movie than Titanic.
Well, I haven't seen either, so I have no comment.
Tape 2 of the Titanic is fire, though.
I just like to be an independent thinker here, and so I don't want to get pulled into metaverse dreamlands with you all necessarily. I just, hang out here, play my golf, be in my own head.
Yeah, that's one way I live life.
Nice to see Boost show up on this list as well, talking about users do something and get rewarded. Such a simple idea, but also like I guess coordinate humans to use products is how she frames it. Do you agree with that framing?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, humans, bots, other wallets, it kind of does
AI
whatever you want it to do, frankly. Yeah, we kind of try to stick to our guns, make it as simple as possible. But here's other stats around sort of the impact it's had on creators as well.
Nice.
So for the back half of this thread, Maria moves into this idea of putting a price on things that maybe weren't priced before. We talked about Pump.Fun, so she frames that as a price on virality, very relevant for this meta. Very interesting to see sort of this price on access. She uses friend tech there. It's obviously been a big mechanism that's been used in various ways, from Friends with Benefits to your earliest newsletter, I think, had some version of this with, oh my God, what was the token called again? Jam token, Flynn Jam.
I feel like you forgot.
Listen, I've got a lot in my head. I got a lot going on, Brian. I gotta make room for the.
Hey, I remember Tall. No one remembers Tall.
I don't even remember Tall. So yeah, let's go. I think the most interesting piece of sort of this price is framing is what Unlonely is doing. So she frames it as put a price on momentum during live events. Unlonely's been running a number of sort of live streams with sort of trading integrated in interesting ways. They've done that with their Love on Leverage. They've most recently done it with this 30-minute token. The idea that if a token hits a certain amount of, is that a certain price piece or a certain volume, that it continues on for another sort of 30 minutes the following day. We talked a lot on the show sort of about like the social context that makes trading, buying tokens relevant, and I just love the simplicity of this, and I think will probably show up in many different ways as people experiment with it. But I find myself coming back to this. There's so much value in being in the transaction flow period, especially for the protocols or the front ends that are building these things. And I think this is sort of expanding, or at least maybe making the idea of specific social context very relevant. And I think it just maybe unlocks a couple new vectors for experimentation in products. So I'm assuming they're going to push on that. My guess is like they continue to innovate on this, and one or two of these things sort of clicks. Feels like it's maybe a step and a half away from that right now, but cool to see them continue to experiment.
Yeah, I love this evolution of lots of these products. They try to do something themselves, only creating their own show, and then making it easy for anyone to do it themselves, creating their own show. So, but it's really it's like exactly what you said, of capturing that attention, blowing up into something where value can be generated out of it. So, cool experiments.
I feel like there's like an integration between Crypto the Game, like where Crypto the Game came from, HQ Trivia, and Unlonely, that could be kind of interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I would love that. I do wish I could watch Crypto the Game a little bit more than I can.
I think the real interesting meta here is how do you combine all of these coordination firms together into a single one?
Bitcoin.
Oh my God. Too many of these things coming together. Maria goes into a whole bunch of other interesting things, talking about 404s, liquid markets around NFTs. So it's definitely a thread worth checking out. And yeah, I think I don't know if I would recommend trying to combine all these together, but I definitely think like a fun mental experiment is to just think about how you would combine a few of these, especially if you're in a sort of a brainstorm phase.
15 primitives means 15 points. Let's put it that way.
I don't know what that means, but I appreciate you saying it. Cool. All right, let's move on. Let's dive into the topic that Pieces wanted to talk about, well, forever, I'm sure. Maybe this is too narrow for you to talk about specifically, Piece, but runes, fungible tokens on Bitcoin, launching at the halving. I have seen this sort of bubble up on my timeline a lot more over the last little while. Runes is sort of like an evolution. This idea of fungible tokens on Bitcoin is not new. We've had the BRC20 standard for a little while, but my understanding was that was very inefficient in the mechanism, kind of clogged up the network quite a bit, was costly, and maybe not the easiest thing to build on. And so Runes is the evolution of that, the idea that there will be fungible tokens being bought, being sold, being traded on the Bitcoin blockchain. And I think that the meta here really is, for the longest time, Bitcoin was a slow store of value chain. There was not a whole lot of evolution. The community was very much against it. And then almost through brute force with ordinals and with runes, we sort of opened up this world. And, a lot of the work that I think Stacks has been trying to do for a while, it's kind of opened up Bitcoin as kind of like a smart contract platform, or maybe better framed as like a deep pool of liquidity that people have sort of shoehorned a lot more functionality into. It seems very interesting to me for a few reasons. One, the number of holders and traders of Bitcoin is just like absolutely massive. Two, the Bitcoin brand is like the strongest brand in crypto right now. I mean, maybe you could argue it always has, but it feels like it is just like very much on the narrative rise, both for the fundamental reasons, the fuck fiat sort of angle. The government's running our dollars into the ground. But now with this sort of like innovation angle that I think Ethereum and Solana kind of really held a lot of the mind share around. So I don't know. I'm cautiously bullish about runes, and it's a place that I feel like I need to go a bit deeper in. I don't know if you've been exploring it all, Brian.
Oh, this is way out of my topics. But what I will say is I just remember colored coins. And when Rare Pepe first launched their NFTs, they actually did it on Bitcoin back in, I think it was like 2015 or so. I think it was called Counterparty at the time, I'm pretty sure. And that's only to the extent of my interactions with JPEGs and meme coins on Bitcoin. Ever since then, I've been out of the game. So it's been interesting. Been interesting seeing Bitcoin people come full circle as they see other L1s taking off.
Okay, so Peace, give us the TLDR here. You've I think maybe a month or so ago, you converted from being not a Bitcoin guy whatsoever to being a Bitcoin guy, and then quickly were like kind of not a Bitcoin guy anymore because you just bought so many ordinals that you didn't actually hold any Bitcoin anymore. What's your journey been like there?
I mean, honestly, my journey all started with the journey started probably with other internet article and talking about headless brands and becoming obsessed with the phenomenon of Bitcoin as a brand, which then like staged my mind for Ticker Bitcoin, Harry Potter, Obama, Sonic 10, Inu, which like had me primed for Bitcoin My Ladies. And then I got into the Bitcoin ad world stuff. They had all these like Bitcoin things on their characters or whatever. And so that really just like set the stage for me being really interested in these little fuckers. Let's see, and if I can pull up undoxed.
I don't know if he's calling little fuckers as like just a type of thing, or if that's actually
you can't tell.
token.
No, I know it's
really
it's not a token. These little things. So then it's like these Ord Puppet Inu undoxed millionaires show up, and I'm like, holy fuck, this is so beautiful, like opium. Everything about the copywriting and brand just makes perfect sense. And then, yeah, I mean, the truth is like I don't understand them whatsoever. I just saw this and I was like, this is like what I like about crypto. And then I had to like learn how to do something new. And I don't know, it just feels all scary and weird where you're like, you send Bitcoin to this wallet and then you have to use a Taproot address in order to receive the ordinal. And that felt scary and weird. So I bought one. And then because I own a puppet, I just have been getting sent random shit since then. Great way to, you know, get a cheerleader on board. And since then, I've just like, I don't know, bought more Bitcoin so that I can buy these pre-runes. Truly barely understand UTXOs. Barely understand any of it other than you can buy them and sell them. And these BRC20s are so like the way they're listed is so cool where like you buy them in batches. So it's kind of like buying a basket of tokens. So it's like you're buying tokens in the same way that you buy an NFT more or less. Like, cool, I can pay 09 Bitcoin for 100 pups at this rate. And that's the level at which I'm operating, like a genuine techno peasant here who is just enthusiastic about tokens. And and so and some of these BRC20s are going to turn into runes post-halving. Not all of them. Everyone's fighting, chomping at the bit to get 1 through 9, those slots for runes, because I guess, you know, being a single-digit rune will be like insane provenance. And it'll be
Bitcoin fees going up, baby.
Yeah,
get your transactions pre-halving.
We're attacking Bitcoin.
It sounds like do things that are scary and weird, and then that's the thing that will make peace buy your thing.
Basically, yeah, it's awesome.
When is the halving happening, anyways?
Oh,
like now?
Shit!
Is it like right now?
Enjoy his halving. What? Halving. Halving fun.
Nice.
This is the shit I wake up to from peace. He's like, I did this thing. Let's play it at the halving.
That's incredible.
That's going to be a mint up on the Enjoy Tech Zora page. So I think it's live right now. If you want to go over and mint that with Enjoy,
we'll have to boost it.
We should boost it. That's a good one to boost. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll create a party for it. Then we'll get it on Crypto the Game. We'll start combining some of these mechanisms.
Fuck yes. Man, well, okay, and there's cool shit. Like, there's just been these ordinals projects that really excite me. Like this project Sense. I mean, it's like classic 2021 NFT energy thing where there's these guys who apparently they've been into working on like the SVG standard back in the early 2000s. And so they worked on compressing these scans of pennies as best they could. They're stored on chain. They took all those pennies, melted them down into a copper cube and burned them. And now their image exists. It's enshrined on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's like so basic and beautiful, stupid, even, but the energy is just good. And this is another project like Game of Blocks. This is like it's terrifying to play because you have to know you have to inscribe, and you can buy and sell multiple of these where like the game is literally played by sending Bitcoin transactions on Bitcoin with these tokens. And so I don't know, there's just a good energy. And we got these. Yeah, I love these little fuckers. Rad Bro, Satoshi's Vision. You cannot tell me that the Bitcoin brand is not the coolest thing in the world. Like, it's so insane.
I love going down these rabbit holes. I'm just picturing people watching this right now going, what? If they just tuned in for the last 3 minutes, they're going to be like, what the fuck is actually happening here? So I think mission achieved. So, well, happy having. We're in a whole new era here, and I'm glad we could celebrate with a little enjoy. I mean, I don't even know how you create it. The whole thing is magical to me, so I love it. And I guess, yeah, the runes meta has just kicked off, so it's something we'll be keeping an eye on. And I think one of my super secret tricks is to just pay close attention to what Peace Node is infatuated with, and then be like, okay, there's probably something here. Actually, I do that with you too, Brian. I think in both the same cases, I go, there's probably something happening here. What you think exactly is happening is either not quite true or just way, way too early, but I need to pay attention regardless. So now everybody gets to have that experience. All right, well, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about Uniswap network effects, and it, I think, ties into a later topic here as well. So Uniswap tweeted the other day that the $250 billion worth of volume on L2, next stop 1 trillion. I mean, it's so delightful to think that this was like literally a hackathon style project that just was probably the biggest unlock in crypto, since since Ethereum, since the blockchain, smart contracts. This ability to have a market for absolutely anything is like the basic requirement for most of the charts that we probably look at on a regular basis. And I think the interesting thing here is just how ubiquitous this protocol is. Like the number of people who are transacting here, the sort of number of teams that have integrated it here. It's just the example of one of the more pure examples of like the vending machine on the internet. It's out there. It's going to exist forever as long as Ethereum exists or a blockchain exists, and allows people to transact. Maybe the true headless marketplace, the purest in its form. And I think like the note here really is like just how even with competitors, even with vampire attacks, even with better tech in many ways. The sort of the brand of Uniswap almost has really sustained its value or its usage in a pretty remarkable way. I think it sort of speaks to the power of being first, speaks to the power of building a protocol that is open and forkable and extendable. And obviously in the news over the last little while, as they're sort of being sued by the SEC, and so probably one of the most important legal fights facing the crypto space right now as well. It was interesting to me to see how small the actual volume and sort of dollar amounts that the front end of Uniswap is actually earning compared to the overall usage of it. So I think, do you know how long ago they turned on the fee switch for the front end? I mean, we're talking.
That was January, I want to say.
January, right?
But although
this year?
This year, yeah.
That's madness.
Recently. But actually, if you look at this chart right in front of you, when the SEC Wells notice happened, it actually turned up that fee even higher. So you can actually see that pretty visibly on the chart right there.
Interesting. That was the moment, eh? Was that the SEC or was that the because there was also a proposal for turning on the fee of the protocol?
It happened the same time as I got the Wells notice.
It's crazy because it wasn't that much, was it? It was like 0.25% or something, but like
they're like, well, we're going to need some fees to put a battle here. So,
I mean, my takeaway here is that this is actually a tiny amount of revenue compared to the usage, and I think the stats are showing that like somewhere around like sub 5%. I'm trying to bring up the actual chart I had here of users were actually paying the fee. So it goes to say that the vast majority of volume is still moving through other front ends or other places where Uniswap is integrated, and that really the protocol is the thing that's creating the massive amount of value versus the front end itself, even though in my personal usage, the front end is like I'm not even thinking about the fee. It's the place I go to use it, etc. That was a bit shocking to me. But I think, yeah, it just speaks to how deeply integrated into so many different products and experiences it is to have, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of volume happening outside of the front end of this protocol.
Yeah, it's beautiful because there's DEX aggregators that are driving volume. There's places like PartyDAO, which makes it easy to create that liquidity pool. There's places like Merkle. It makes it easy to create liquidity incentives for Uniswap pool, and just so dozens and dozens of crypto companies just building on top of the protocol as their main business, and it's just been incredible to see how they've gotten those network effects.
So my guess is they turn on the protocol level fee switch at some point during this court battle, just to really drive the point home. And I guess it could be, I don't know, it's probably one of the most important sort of news happenings in crypto, I think, is what happens with this Uniswap case. And unfortunately, it's not going to be a quick thing, something that we'll probably see over the next number of years. But I think a lot of the current meta of meme coins and sort of attention-driven tokens is really in large part, driven by the regulatory framework that we have out in the world, and the ability to actually distribute ownership and represent ownership in networks as tokens. I think is still like the most promising opportunity in crypto. It just has been a very difficult thing to achieve, and hopefully we get a bit more regulatory clarity around this. Great brand. All right, this sort of leads into a next topic. I don't know how this came up this week, but sort of diving into the question of like marketing in crypto. And I think Ben Roy wrote a piece, which I love Ben for. Like Ben, we can go to mine in a second here because mine was just actually a riff on Ben's. But he sort of was calling for better marketing as it relates to Farcaster, and it kind of led to a debate between him and Dan around the value of marketing, or the role of marketing, especially in a social product. So I think the thread itself is actually really interesting to see, because I think there's a lot of people in there trying to sort of figure that out. I know Ben's DMs were just bombarded as people were sort of sharing thoughts, etc., and he wrote a nice little follow-up on it. But I sort of tweeted whatever I tweeted, something more around the lens of like, we don't, I guess the trope is, if I build a great product, I don't need to market it. And in crypto, it's like almost like there's a whole other world where all you need is marketing. It's kind of the meme coin land, etc. But I think like the TLDR that kind of came out of that is like it's another example of people kind of arguing past each other on the internet, which is nothing new. But the core question is like, should you have a marketing role? Would a CMO make sense in a crypto project? I think Dan's case was that needs to be founder led, and it's really about putting the right product out into the world. And that's the way you kind of do the great marketing. I think where Ben was coming from was saying that there's just still so much room and importance around storytelling, around connecting dots for people, around sort of like doing the hard legwork to get these ideas out into the wider world. And so I think my take is that there's just, I come from a marketing background. I think people kind of define the term marketing a little too narrow. I think Dan and Farcaster are absolutely exceptional at marketing. They do it in a very organic and authentic way. They're very, they sort of champion the vision they have. They are very good around talking about how they're building, why they're building. They're engaging with their community. I consider all of that, like the positioning itself, the choice to build a protocol and the first application on it, protocol-led development, all these sort of things in my mind are marketing. And at the same time, I think it's very right that the idea that bringing a CMO or an ecosystem lead into Farcaster wouldn't be super value additive. In fact, their marketing is so strong because it's founder-led and team-led and really authentic from that point of view. But I mean, there's a world where we say Boost is really a marketing product. It's disrupting advertising at some level. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on either both from your perspective in building Boost and maybe the broader perspective as well.
Yeah, sir. I think there's a famous mantra that goes something like first-time founders focus on product, and second-time founders focus on distribution. It sounds like distribution is really the output, or marketing is kind of the input. It's really distribution is like the question here, right? I think then it's like, hey, we need better distribution because we want to get other people aside from crypto Twitter crypto natives inside of Farcaster, how do we actually pull this up? And Dan's point here is, well, we need to focus on our core competencies and crypto Twitter, and there's still a lot that can be done here. And so, I mean, both are kind of right, but at the end of the day, I think Dan is really spot on focusing on where the audience currently is and improving the product. But distribution is really the name of the game, and something to focus on. And at Boost is how can we actually just make distribution for crypto apps just a lot easier overall? Because what people kind of do today is really rely on Twitter for distribution, right? It's like, let's spend all this time on creating as much attention as possible on Twitter, just so we can build up this following, so we can get higher in the feed, just so that when time comes for us to sell the product, that we have that built-in distribution. But we're kind of approaching this tipping point in crypto where that actually may not be true, right? We can actually use different incentives, whether it's social distribution with tipping allowances, whether it's something like Boost with something like Party, to actually get that distribution we need. So it feels like that Twitter meta of get a bunch of distribution and sell your product is kind of dying. And, we've seen the effects of that with things like FTX and a bunch of crypto Twitter influencers getting all this distribution and then getting into private sales and then dumping on their followers, right? I think everyone is kind of sick of that meta. I know it kind of relates to even the next topic that we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah. I'm sorry. That was the grossest video I've ever seen piece. I was trying to pay attention to Brian talking, but some dude eating raw chicken on my screen was not the thing I was looking for at 10:45 in the morning. But thank you for that. Marketing your seeds with the fruits they yield is real. How do these things not get more views, piece?
I don't know.
It's just shocking. It's atrocious.
You need to post in Farcaster.
Yeah.
Maybe so. Yeah, but I think it's so interesting. It did spark such a good conversation, and I just want to know, I guess, what some people's perspective on what marketing is. I think it's super interesting when you're talking about, like, he is literally building distribution, and he's building an example of what that looks like, and he's done a really great job of growing that tremendously. And yeah, I don't know. It feels like such a chicken or the egg thing. Like, the thing that I hear most from people feels like, well, there's just like not anything but crypto content on there, or there's like nothing cool, or why would I be looking at that or something when it doesn't apply. This is how it all reads to me. It's like, win marketing, win tier 1 exchange, code smoother bridge. It's just like, we gotta let the steam out. It's true, we gotta vent, but people need to focus on their own damn content strategy. Good Lord.
Amen, brother.
That's
Amen.
all. So sorry. Whatever. What am I saying?
No, I think I tweeted yesterday. I think people are just straw man. Twitter's just straw man arguments and like extreme takes right now. And obviously there's a ton in the nuance. And I think that so much of this comes down to definitions. And,
but this is it's happening out of crypto. This marketing meta, this stuff is all over Instagram, of just people doing repeat accounts, or this, like, one of my favorite accounts is just this guy who is clanking around, horrible loud video, and he's like, does anybody want some coffee? They post that video every fucking day. The account has like 500,000 followers or something stupid like that. It's really interesting the way people are thinking about what is marketing, what is effective, and like, everyone's exhausted, and it's coming out in funny ways.
Like eating raw chicken on
the
screen. I love it. Yeah, well, and I think sort of as a segue into our next topic here, that it's sort of, as new mediums are introduced, and sort of how they're defined with algorithms or with how users are using them, it starts to define the types of media that and the opportunities and the content that comes out of it. And I think, we hold the belief that tokens are a type of media, and that a lot of the experimentation, whether that's through mechanisms, that's through distribution, that's through the conversations that it's driven on the internet, are being defined sort of by this introduction of price and introduction of I guess speculation on a media type, and whether that's NFTs or meme coins or your sort of L1s. There's actually, I think, a lot that goes into that. And so our next topic here is sort of the airdrop struggles. what we've seen over the last little while, I think that's kind of led by probably the Jupiter airdrop, was that there's a whole wave of DeFi protocols and tools on Solana and Ethereum that have very quickly put tokens out. I think there's sort of like this backlog of teams that were building through the bear market that saw like a window of excitement sparked, I think, by the Jupiter airdrop, and saying, oh, tokens are back. It's time to get our token out into the world. Have done a number of airdrops have sort of happened over the last little while, or token releases. And it seems as if the market is no longer super stoked on them. So we're seeing a bunch of tokens launch. I think there's kind of some funny business in how they're structured as well. And that kind of led to some short-term thinking in my mind. But, I think across the board, we're seeing, obviously the market's down more generally, but we're seeing sort of down into the right here. There's a good tweet right here from Thor Hartvigsen, talking about some of the more recent airdrops or token launches. And nobody wants to see that price chart on a token that's coming out. Sure, some of that is probably just a general displeasure with tokens, or like the exhaustion we have right now, I think, is the market's in a bit of a consolidation period. But I think there's sort of a bigger question here in my mind, kind of around like the lack of novelty and belief. Like these are pure infrastructure plays, and not even like true innovations in infrastructure. There are a lot of sort of fast followers that are coming out. And so, if you hold the belief that like a strong narrative and there is actually a lot of sort of social and cultural value that underpins, belief in the future that underpins a lot of these tokens, kind of becomes obvious that like the second or third, liquid staking protocol on Solana is just not going to be the most compelling thing for people to be in. So I think like, we saw this sort of speed run of points programs and getting people excited and getting them hyped, and then launching a token only to see these tokens sort of fall off a cliff pretty early on. So I think we're seeing that meta kind of pass us by right now. And I think people are looking for, in a world where there is just a ton of competition for our attention, and the categories that we have are already full with a lot of different products. Launching new tokens into that probably isn't going to be the most compelling thing for the general participant out in crypto land.
I missed the airdrops back in 2018. If you remember, were just hold this token on this exchange, and then you'll just get some Bitcoin fork token and just airdrop to your wallet. The times are much simpler.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the reality. There's something like 13,000 tokens that CoinMarketCap tracks. That's not even counting all the ones that are on Pumped Up Fun, etc. I think going back to our point around distribution, this is kind of the name of the game. But I think there's also sort of a belief component here, right? Like a lot of these are clearly not being valued on sort of the fundamental value in any way. Like the revenues that are coming back to this is, again, for regulatory reasons, etc., not underpinning these prices. And so really it is like a bet on the future of where these things go. And I think a big part of that is sort of telling the bigger story. It is a marketing thing, even though I don't think any amount of sort of KOL influencer marketing is going to change the fates of these things. There was also a great thread that we shared probably a month back from Reagan at Lattice that was kind of talking about kind of the market structure around a lot of these deals. And I've seen it sort of firsthand as well, where these teams were saying, hey, we're going to go launch a token really soon. They'd go raise some capital that at fairly substantial valuations, do a bunch of influencer rounds, and then, very quickly run towards launching a token. And so I think there's actually going to be a ton of capital tied up and lost in these things, where, teams were expecting a bump. They were launching with very small float. They were expecting that float would kind of lead to some spikes in prices. That hasn't happened for many of them. And, if you're predicting like an easy 2 or 3x on your, $10 to $50 million late stage token, pre-token deal investment that a number of firms were doing, probably not having a good time. Like Reagan did a good job of kind of calling that out anyway, since so many of these tokens are locked up. But it's hard for me to see what kind of comes back and drives renewed attention in a lot of these, I'll call them sort of mid to long tail, pure infrastructure plays. Now, obviously, talking my book, I just, I think memetics and the culture and the social aspects of these things that are ultimately the brand, I think, is maybe the thing that I orient the most around and how value gets created in crypto. So I guess maybe I could be proven wrong if they kind of come back at it. But
there was a really interesting post as well that was posted this week by the CEO of TokenSoft, who is like a CoinList alternative. You can put Mason if you want to look it up, Peace Node. But it's around on-chain go-to-market.
Sorry,
playbook.
what's their name?
If you look up Mason, I'll give you an exact handle actually right now. So Masonic _ tweets. Yeah, right there, top one there. So if you go to the post that he wrote, if you go through his feed, he has this post around on-chain go-to-market. Scroll through right there. Yeah, there it is. And the premise is something like he's seen a lot of tokens, basically. Some tokens basically launched since 2017, and the number one KPI or metric that he's seen determine success in token projects is actually number of holders, right? So he kind of did some analysis, and getting tokens actually in the hands of right users and far and wide actually creates this where you have many believers in the project. And there's some thinking of why that actually happens. So, it's interesting in that a lot of these airdrops are starting to limit the number of people who are actually receiving the token because they're trying to deter Symbol. So it's actually very antithetical to like the premise of airdrops, which Uniswap really made popular, which was get your tokens in hands of many believers as possible, right? And people kind of forgot why airdrops hadn't happened in the first place. And so I think what we'll start to see is new mechanisms around getting tokens in the hands of as many people as possible who are actually believers in the product and demonstrated believers. Social distribution, obviously a big piece of that. But I think we'll start to see this airdrop meta start to change pretty fast as we're sort of seeing these prices start crash on these newer airdrops of sort of reinventing what that token playbook actually looks like.
Yeah, I think it's changed already, right? There's a very different world. I think so much of this is rooted in like tokens as governance versus tokens as maybe distribution or belief mechanisms. If you're aligned around governance, there's almost like a scarcity mindset I've talked about before that kind of comes in as if you're a founder, or if you're somebody who's thinking through tokens, you're kind of giving up control. It feels like you're giving up equity in some way, right? And that, I think there's just a long history of that being a thing that you need to protect and be thoughtful around. And I think you and I've got into a few debates around, I think, airdrops in many ways. And I think, believe in this point of like, irrelevance is probably the thing that you need to fight the most against, right? And so you can frame up airdrops as being overly expensive and ineffective because you've given away $1 billion worth of these tokens, and maybe you only got 100,000 holders out of it over the long term. But I think when framed against like the true enemy here, which is just like complete irrelevance and nobody caring, there's probably like no amount of money that you wouldn't be willing to spend to, I don't know if that made sense, but we'll go with it, that you wouldn't be able to spend to actually sort of increase the likelihood that you'll be relevant or your token will be relevant and have a chance of kind of sustaining over the long term. And also I hold true the belief that probably the more effective we can be in those distributions, the better. And it's why I'm so bullish on social distribution right now. If you look at Enjoy, if you look at DGen, this ability to sort of identify the great users, great believers through their demonstrated actions on chain, and then give those people who are the best versions of that the ability to curate the next wave of people who come in through taking similar actions. It's, again, I've been riffing on this forever, but I think there is like a big open design space there. I put Boost in that category. I think there's going to be a bunch of others that kind of emerge, and it's a space that we're paying close attention to. So if anybody's building in the social distribution world or wants to, we are all ears. There's a ton of stuff to be built. I got ideas. I got ideas in the brain here. How are we already at the top of the hour, Brian? Good God. I had two like deep, meaty other topics to get into. There's a great piece from Placeholder talking about on-chain finance is thriving. Some really great stats in there showing just like kind of gives you a sense of the scale of the market. Still super early, still super niched, but there's like a meaningful amount of volume moving through these networks. I think it's relevant to me through the lens of like this broader conversation of whether teams should target crypto users or they should try to target net new users. I think it kind of came up in this conversation around Farcaster. And, there are 30 million monthly active users on, I believe it was MetaMask, or I'm going to misquote this in a little way. There's tens of millions of users out there that, if you think about even a product like Farcaster that's, has maybe 80,000, 100,000 daily active users, there's still a ton of room to roll here. Even watching Peace dive into Bitcoin and ordinals and runes. I think that's just an example of people serving the true crypto, if the aficionados, that's not even the right word to use here, but lot of room to run there. I would love for you to bring up, as we jump into the last second here, the lightning round, the Nostalgia Express tweet here piece.
What have we got? Nostalgia Express.
The last link here.
Oh, well, okay. Sorry, we've done this one.
That's what I want.
This one? Oh, yeah. Nice.
Yeah,
perfect.
That's the one I want. So I love this because I woke up to this in the group chat yesterday with Josh going, "Why am I on this list? What does this mean?" And then a beautiful breakdown piece. Thank you for translating to those of us that are boomers on in the group chat. I just wanted to call out this account is just shots fired in the best way, kind of calling out like the taste of crypto Twitter and a whole new type of guy. To see Ben and Josh on this list just warms my heart. They feel like they've made it in a certain way. Brian, do you own any of these things? I don't. Are you an ASOP guy?
Thankfully not.
Oh, come on.
Damn.
Yeah, those loafers would work well in Aspen and your Aspen that you're in right now.
Yeah, the loafers are straight up heat.
Yeah, those are dope loafers.
So Prada loafers, I would. I love this fucking soap, man.
I love this fucking soap.
But when you go to those things are in the 1 hotels across actually.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
anytime I use that 1 hotel, I'm like, I gotta buy some of this. But I look at the price; it's like $60. Like, maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah, I love these moments that make me feel really old, and I'm like, all right, okay, how am I going to transition into this later stage of life and still be relevant? Is a thought that I have quite a bit. My golf habits not helping that in any way. All right, folks, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you for hanging out with us. It's been really wonderful to see people come in, showing back up here every Friday. Been out at the conferences, people coming up and talking to me about how much they love the show. I don't know, it just seems fun. We kind of feel like we're just talking into the void here sometimes, and to see the response has been really wonderful. So appreciate you hanging out with us here Friday mornings, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern, other times around the world. We got people tuning in from all over the world, which I love. Reminder that if you're interested in coming to hang out with us at free Wi-Fi at FarCon, sponsored by Zerion, Archetype, and Boost, of course, that we got to get on this list here.
That's right.
It's going to be an epic event. So you can check out our Twitter account for a link to that. We'll be talking a lot about it over the next little while. We got a lot of fun stuff planned. It's going to be the event of the week, I think.
Does Peace Node do this branding? Peace, do you do this branding here?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Fire.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Incredible.
Too good. All right, the enjoyment that it kind of interrupted our show at the Halving events up it's on Zora, I guess. You can follow it on the Enjoy Tech channel on Farcaster. Brian, thank you for hanging out with us today, diving into mechanisms. Josh is away again next week. We've got another special guest host coming next week, so make sure you tune in for that. And until then, we'll see you on chain.